as well as our department. So the institute vision is to be recognized among the best institute in India for the excellence in technical education. And from the institute vision, our department vision has taken or has written. So our department vision is to be nationally recognized for the excellence in education, augmented by research in the field of computer science and engineering. So it is our department vision. Now, next one is the institute mission. So the institute mission is to impart value-added technical education through the ambience of academic excellence, research, and life skills by inculcating personal touch and respect in relationship amongst the stakeholders. Okay, and our department mission is to impart value-added technical and applied research-oriented education by inculcating life skills oriented to industries with the emphasis on human values. So that is our vision and mission of institute and the department. Now the next is the program specific outcomes, that is PSO. So these programs are specific to a particular program, or we can say specific to a particular department. Okay, so there are total 3 program specific outcomes. Very first is the student have to understand and design the computer system by using knowledge of DT, that is digital technique, microprocessor, computer organization, advanced computer architecture, operating system, system programming, compiler construction, and the application software. Means the student will be able to, or the engineering graduate will be able to do all the things. Means he must have the knowledge of DT, microprocessor. So we can say that it is the structure of our system, or it is the structure of our computer system. So he must have the knowledge of this structure. Then interpret, analyze, and design software system, programming knowledge using the algorithm, web technology, using the big data analytics, networking, etc. And the third one is adopt the applications in emerging fields of the computer science and engineering. So these PSOs are nothing but it is the structure of our department or our computer science department. So in computer science and engineering, so basically we require hardware or we require the system, and to operate that system we require the software or we require algorithms, some technologies. So we can achieve or we can build the system with the help of all these structures and all this programming knowledge. Now the next one is the program educational objectives, that is PEO. So there are total 4 PEOs of our department. So very first is apply the computer science domain specific knowledge. Okay, so here domain specific knowledge is nothing but the knowledge related to the computer engineering. Okay, so the apply the computer science domain specific knowledge and the skills in the software and related industries. Then second one, demonstrate leadership, professional ethics, project management, and some finance related attributes as the employees or the employers. Okay, means in the companies, so whenever we are doing the project, so as the employees we need to follow ethics, we need to follow the project management rules. Okay, also we should have the leadership quality. Okay, then the third one is engage in lifelong learning for the professional advancement to develop innovative solutions for the individual societal problems. And the last one is demonstrates the strong communication skills and ability to function effectively as an individual and a part of the team. So these program educational objectives, so there are total 4 program educational objectives, and next one is the program outcome. So the program outcome means the engineering graduate, or whenever you will completed your engineering, so you will be able to, so there are total 12 program outcomes. So I will just read here the main points of that. So first is engineering knowledge, then second one is the problem analysis, then third one is design or the development of the solution, then conduct investigations of the complex problems, modern tool usage, the engineer and the society, environment and sustainability, ethics, individual and teamwork, communication, project management and finance, and last one is the lifelong learning. Okay, so now the third point as per Triple P is the syllabus of the subject. So it is the syllabus of our database engineering. So the code, subject code of the database engineering is CS 313. Okay, 313 means it is your third year, first semester, and the numbering of this subject is the third in the structure of your syllabus. So the code is CS 313.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Some students are trying to join this lecture. Can you please allow them?
Okay. Okay, so we'll continue. So for this database engineering subject, 2 schemes are there, teaching and the examination scheme. So for the teaching scheme, you are having total 4 hours lecture per week, and this subject is having practical of 2 hours per week. Then for the examination, so this subject is having 70 marks theory paper, and the IAC is of 30 marks, ICA, that is the term work of 25 marks, and the POE, that is practical oral examination of 50 marks. Okay, so this subject contains total 8 chapters. So the section 1 contains 4 chapters and section 2 contains the another 4 chapters. So the first chapter or the first unit is the introduction, as introduction is very basic part. So in the introduction we will see what is exactly database means, what is exactly database system, what are the different applications of database system, then why there is a need of database system, then we will see what is the architecture of database system, then what are the different users of database system, and the history of database system. Okay, now the second chapter is related to the database design and the ER model. Means for before writing any kind of programming, or before writing any kind of queries or the statements, first we need to create the design of our database. So this design of the database, it contains or it is having some specific process. Then we can design our database with the help of some ER models or the ER diagrams. ER diagrams are nothing but the entity relationship diagrams. Then we will see some relational model. Okay, then the structure of the relational model, then we will see the relational algebra, etc. Then our third unit, it is related to the SQL and advanced SQL. So this third chapter is nothing but the totally our practicals, means it is related to the practicals SQL, that is structured query language. So with the help of this structured query language, we can write our query or we can create our database. Okay, so this chapter contains all the points and all the what we can say, all the constraints for preparing or for creating the database. Now, the next one is the relational database design. So this relational database, this chapter, what are the different features of the relational design and how to form the normalized database, or how to remove some errors, or how to remove the duplicates from the data, and after that we'll get the pure data. So that is nothing but the relational database design. Now the section 2. So the section 2, the fifth chapter, is related to the indexing and the hashing. Okay, so in this chapter we will see what is exactly index means, what is the ordered indices, or what are the different types of indices, then how to allocate the index to the data. Then we will see the hashing concept. So what is hashing, then what are the different features of hashing, etc. Then our sixth chapter is related to the transaction. So the transaction chapter is important if we relate it to the online transactions, or nowadays we do many online transaction or online procedure. So for that purpose, this chapter is important. Now the seventh chapter, it is related to the concurrency control, means concurrently or at the same time multiple users they can access the data. That is the concurrency. And if the multiple users are accessing the same data, then what problems will occur? Or to access the same data by the multiple users, there must be some rules, there must be some protocols. So we will see all these protocols and the rules in the seventh chapter. Now our last chapter is related to the recovery system. So the recovery system means, as we know, our computer system may fail anytime. So what are the different types of that failures, and if what happens if the computer system fails, means what happens with the data inside, which is stored inside that computer system, and if the computer system fails, then what recovery actions or what recovery mechanisms we can use to recover that system. So all this is we will see in the last chapter. Now for this database engineering, there are two books. Okay, first book, it is the database system concept, sixth edition, okay, of the McGraw-Hill publication, and the author is the Korth Sudarshan. Okay, so it is the sixth edition book. So this book, it is for the chapter 1 to 7, and for the last chapter, that is recovery system, you can use the same book, but the edition is the fifth edition. Authors are also same. Actually, there are number of editions of this book, but for your syllabus is in the sixth edition book, and but for the last chapter you can use the fifth edition book. Okay, now we will move towards our subject. So our before point is the title of the subject. So our title of subject is nothing but the database engineering. Okay, so the engineering means, all of you know, the engineering that we are currently doing. Okay, means we are the engineering is nothing but it is the application, or it is the discipline of some practical knowledge. It is the discipline, or it is the application of the scientific or the economic knowledge. Okay, for or this knowledge is required to invent something, to design something, and to build a particular system, or to build a particular device. Okay, so the engineering, it is the application of programming knowledge, and using this programming knowledge or knowledge, we can build, we can design our system. Okay, so it is the definition of engineering. Now, what is database? Okay, so first, database means what? the database is again divided into, we can say, the two part, or one subpart is there in the database, that is the data. Okay, so the data means what? Data is nothing but any raw material, okay, or the raw information which is having with us, and the database is nothing but the collection of all that raw information, or the database is nothing but the collection of all the data. So the database, it is the organized collection of the data, okay, and this data is stored and accessed from the computer system. Means that collected data we can store into our computer system, and with the help of some programs or with the help of some languages, we can access that data from the computer system. So the data is organized to model some aspect of the reality that processes the requiring information. Okay. So we can say that the data is nothing but, or the data is required to model some real concept. Okay. Or the real concept is nothing but, if we consider the student data. Okay. So student data or the student, it is anything real concept. So we can store the information or the data related to the student. Okay, so if we combine the two words, that is database and the engineering, so the whole database engineering is nothing but, it is the discipline that involve the first, the concept, then the model and creation of the database. Means the database engineering, it involves the concept of the database. Means what is the concept? If we take example of the student database, so the student database is the concept. Then modeling of the database means we model, or we first draw the structure of that student database. Means what fields we require or what information we require in that student database, that is nothing but the modeling of the database. And last one is the creation of the database. Means actually we can create our database. Now, so the database engineering, it involves the database documentation, and it also involves the data administration and analysis of the data. Okay, data administration means there must be one admin who handle or who manage all this data, and for solving the real life problems, we need to analyze the data. Means we need to check data all the times. Our whole database engineering, it is the discipline which creates actual data and which manages the whole data. Okay, so it is about the title of the chapter. Now next is the central idea of the subject. Okay, so the central idea of, in the central idea of subject, we will see, so in this subject, that is in the database engineering, we will see number of new things. Okay, and I think the database engineering, it is a new subject for you people. Okay, so there is no any prerequisite of this subject. So the database engineering, it focuses on the understanding of the fundamentals of the database system. Okay, means in very first chapter, in our first chapter, we will see the understanding of the database system. We will see what is the relational database model. Then we will see some data models. Then we will see the architecture of the database. Okay, so this database engineering or this subject, it focuses on the understanding of the normalization concept. Okay, then it the understanding of the data integrity concept. Means whenever we are performing or whenever we are creating our database, so it must require some conditions or it must require some constraints. That is nothing but our database data integrity. Then we understand the security, or what is the security related to the database. So by providing some authentication mechanism to the data, we can provide the security to the database. Then the data manipulation. Obviously, the data is not constant. It may change anytime. Means suppose I have created the database of the student, and the address of that student get changed after 4 5 years. So I need to modify the address of that student. Okay, so this is nothing but the data manipulation. Means we manipulate our data. Then it also provides the practical skills in the use of databases with the help of structured query languages. Means with the help of SQL, we can write the query for our database. Okay, so as your programming languages C, C++, Java, .NET. Okay, so using these languages, you can create the application program. Okay, but with the help of this structured query language, we can create only database, and the database is present at the backend side. Okay, means the program or the application whatever you are developing with the Java and .NET, so that application is nothing but the front end of any project. And whenever we are using the database, so database must be at the back end of the project. Okay, and this subject or it ends with covering the database transactions and the recovery concepts. Okay, so all these points we will see in our syllabus one by one. Now next one is the importance of the subject. Okay, so why database is important? So basically database, it is mostly used in many of the organizations. Okay, or it is mostly used in any kind of enterprise to store the data. Okay, then the database, it is used to support the operations of the organization, and it also support the online transaction. So the online transaction means uh, we are doing some online purchases. Okay, like if you consider the example of Amazon or the eBay. Okay, so on this site we can purchase something. Okay, which is online. So for tracking the order or for storing the information related to the online transaction, we can again use the database. Then the database management system, it is important because it manages the data very efficiently and in a convenient way, so that all the users, they perform the multiple tasks very easily. Means the management of the database is very easily and it is very convenient. Now the database management system, it stores the data, it organizes the data and manages the large amount of information within a single software application. So for every software application there is a database which do all these things. Means which stores the data, which organizes the data, and which manages the data. So database management systems are very important to business and the organizations. Okay, because they provide the efficient method for handling multiple types of data. So there are different kinds of organizations. Okay, and for every organization we can use the database, and obviously the organization is different if we consider the company or the employee record. So the employee record, it is required for the company. If we consider the hospital, so the database for the hospital is different. If we consider the college data or the student data, so it is different. So these are some types of the database, that is employee record, student information, project management, some inventory management, and the library management. Okay, so these are the some uh, types of the database. Okay, now next point B7, that is subject or the course outcomes. So there are total 6 outcomes of our subject. So very first outcome is the number of this CO is CS 313.1. Okay, it is define and apply the basic concept of database system and the basic concept of design and the relational model and the schemas. Okay, so it is the first CO. Now this CO or our first chapter is based on this CO. Means in our first chapter there is just introduction, or there are only the basic concepts related to the database. Okay, now the second chapter, it is the design principles for logical design of the database, including the ER method and the normalization approach for any real-time application. Okay, so our second chapter, that is the database design, and our fourth chapter, that is the normalization. Okay, so they are based on this CO. Then third one is the evaluate using relational algebra and SQL solutions to a broad range of query problems in a relational database management system. So our third chapter, that is SQL and the advanced SQL, it is based on this CO. Now next, the demonstrate an understanding of the normalization theory and apply such knowledge to normalize the database. Again, it is related to our fourth chapter. Then fifth one is the compare the basic database storage structure and access techniques, that is the indexing methods including the B-tree and the hashing. Okay, so this CO, it is related to our fifth chapter, and the last CO is familiar with the basic issues of transaction processing. Okay, that is the ACID properties, different methods of concurrency control and the recovery techniques. Okay, so this CO is related with our 6th, 7th and the last chapter. So there are total 6 COs of our for our subject. Okay, so we will start our chapter, first chapter. The name of the first chapter is the Introduction to the Database Management System. So these are the contents or the syllabus of the first chapter. I think total 8 to 9 points are there. So we will see all these points one by one in this chapter. Okay, then next one is the title of chapter. So our title is Introduction to the Database. Okay, or simply the introduction. So the introduction is nothing but, suppose some things are not knowing to us, then by learning that thing we can known to that thing. So the introduction is nothing but knowing the unknown things. Okay, means the things which are not known to us, so we are knowing that things. That is nothing but the introduction. So here introduction is related to the concept of the database. Okay, means in our first chapter we will see the basic or the simple concept of the database. The introduction is the act of beginning something new. Okay, means whenever we are studying anything new, so the first part of that concept is nothing but the introduction. Introduction, it is the basic instructional text. Means the whatever points are there in the introduction, they are very basic to us. Means we can easily understand all that concept. That is nothing but the introduction. So the next point is the central idea of the chapter. So in this chapter, we will see what is exactly database, then why there is a need of database. Okay, and we will see what are the different applications of the database, what is the database language, then how to write that language, what is the database architecture, what are the different users of the database, So all these points means very basic points we will see in this chapter. Then next is the importance of the chapter. So the why this chapter is important. Okay. So as the information is important in most of the organization. Okay, as we have seen, the different organizations are there and they need to maintain the information related to that organization, and that information is very important for that organization. So the programmers they have developed the programmers have developed the large body of concept and the techniques for managing the data. Okay, means the many programmers they have developed the database for managing the data. So this chapter is important to study because it gives the overall basic idea of the subject. Means through this chapter we'll get the basic idea of our subject. Then the chapter outcome or the outcome of this chapter is, after learning of this chapter, student will be able to the first differentiate between database management system and the file system. Okay, so both the concept we will see in the chapter. Then student will be able to understand the relational database, and he will be able to understand the data storage and the querying of the database. Okay, so we'll start our first point, that is database management system, or what is the database management system. So the database management system, it is the collection of the data. Okay, or we can say it is the collection of interrelated data. Now the interrelated data means what? The data which is related with each other, that is called as the interrelated data, and the set of programs to access those data. Means we require the set of programs to retrieve, to get those data. Okay, so the very simple definition of database management system is that it is the collection of interrelated data and the set of programs to access those data. Okay, so the database management system, it contains information about the particular enterprise. Means the database management system, it contains the information about a particular organization. Okay, examples are, we have seen that if the hospital is there, then the data related to the hospital, it is the information for that particular organization. Then if we consider the university example, then the data related to the university, it is for that particular enterprise. So the database is the collection of related data which represents something in the real world. Okay, so our database is nothing but it is the collection of related data. Okay, so if we consider the database of the student record, so the database of the student record, it contains the name of the student, then roll number of the student, address of the student, phone number of the student, and marks of the student. Okay, for example. Then the database of the student is the collection and related data. Okay, means if we consider the student database, so it is the collection of data of the student, and all this data is related with each other. Means if I consider the student as an example, then the data of that student is related with each other. Okay, but if we consider the database of the employee, or if we consider the database of the doctor, so these two are not related to each other. Means the data of the student is not related to the data of the employee. Okay, so our definition of database is nothing but it is the interrelated data, or it is the collection of interrelated data. Okay, so this thing is very important, that is the collection of interrelated data. Then the database management system, it contains the information about the particular enterprise. So in our daily life, we are using many database applications. Okay, so we are using banks. Okay, so in the bank, we can use the database. Then, if we consider the another example, that is in the railway reservation, we can use the database to store the information. Or whenever we are booking some tickets, so at that time also we are using the database. So in the hotel booking also we can use the database. So a number of applications are there of the database. Then the primary goal of the database management system is to provide a way to store and retrieve the data in a both convenient and efficient manner. That is, the structure or the environment of the database is both convenient and efficient. Means we can easily retrieve the data, and to retrieve the data, there are number of convenient ways to retrieve the data. So the environment is the convenient and the efficient. Okay, the example, the student database that we have already seen. Now, the next point is the database application, or the subpoint of it is the database application. So the databases, they are used in many of the applications. So very first application of the database is the banking sector, or in the banking, we can use the database to store the customer information. Okay, means in the bank, customer he opens the different accounts. Okay, so we can store the information related to the account also. Means there are different types of account. It may be saving account, current account, or checking account, or the loan account. Then if customer has taken some loan from that bank, then we can also store that information into our database. And the customers, they are doing transactions in their daily life, so we can also track, or we can also store the information of that transaction also. Okay, so in the banking sector, we can use the database to store the customer information, then the information related to the accounts, information related to the loan, and the banking transaction. The second application is the airlines. Okay, airline means if we want to book one ticket, then we can use the database of the airline, or this information is stored in the airline. So for reservation of any ticket and the schedule information, or to store the schedule information, we can use the database in the airline sector. Then the universities, means in the universities, we can use the database for keeping the student information. Okay, obviously the multiple students are there in the universities, then we can use the database for keeping the faculty related information, or for keeping the information about the course registration. Course registration is nothing but means which student has taken which department, or the department registration. And then we can use the database in the university to store the grades or the marks of the student. Then in the sales department, or in the sales section, we can use the database to store the information about the customer, then information about the products, then information about the purchase. Means which customer has purchased which product. So we can find out this with the help of the database used in the sales application. Next is the manufacturing sector. So in the manufacturing companies, they can manufacture many different products. So to keep about that product or the production, we can use the database. Again, in the manufacturing sector, to keep information about the inventory items, then to store the information about the orders, and to store the information about the management of the supply chain, we can use the database in the manufacturing sector. And the last one is the human resources. Okay, so the human resources, it is very basic application of the database. So in all the companies, this application is used. Okay, so this human resources, it contains the information about the employee record, then the information about the salaries of the employees, then some tax related information also we can store in the database in the human resources. Okay, so these are the some database applications, or these are the some applications where we can use the database. Okay, so first is the banking, then the airlines, university, sales, manufacturing, human resource. Okay, and other examples are there in the library management, or in the libraries we can use the database. In the hospital, in the hotel, we can use the database. So there are n number of applications of the database system. Okay, so here we will see one example of a university example. So this the application program examples means in the university we use the database to store all the information about the student, faculty, department, marks, exams, etc. Okay. Then whenever we are storing the data into the database, so to retrieve that information, we require some application programs, and these application programs may be written with the help of either Java, .NET, Android, okay, or anything. So there are different application programs to add the students, means add the new students into our database. Then to add the instructors, means there is a separate program to add the student, and there is another program to add the instructor. Again, to if we want to add any new course or the department to the university, we can write that new program for that, and again this information will be stored in our database. And the registered students for the courses means we can also find out, or we can also write a new program to find out how many students have registered for XYZ course. Okay, and based on that we generate the list or the schedule of that class, and with the help of the student information, course information, we can find out the grades of the student or the marks of the student. So in university, we can use the database to store all these things. And if we store the data into the database, then we can retrieve any information from the database. Okay. So how to retrieve that information from the database? That is the programming part that we will see in our practicals. Okay. Now the second point of our chapter is the purpose of the database. Means why we require the database management system, or there are some drawbacks of the file system application. So before the database, we are storing our data into the files. Okay, so files are used to store the data, and there are number of disadvantages of this file system. So we will see these disadvantages one by one. First disadvantage is the data redundancy and the inconsistency. Okay, so the data redundancy is nothing but duplication of the data. Okay, redundancy is nothing but there are multiple copies of the same data. Means a single data is present on multiple files. That is nothing but the duplication of the data. The different programmers, they create different files and the application programs, and these various files, they have the different structure, or these files have the different format. Due to this, it is possible that the single information is duplicated on number of files. So if we consider the example, in the bank, suppose the customer has opened the saving account also, and he has also the loan account. Means the information of that customer is stored in the two files. One file it is of saving account, and another file it is of loan account. And the information, let's consider the address and the telephone number of that customer is present in two files, that is in the loan account also and in the saving account also. Means what? This is the data redundancy, or it is the duplication of the data. Okay, so previously we are using the files to store the data, it is the computer files to store the data. So it may possible that the data is duplicated in multiple files. Okay, so that is nothing but the data redundancy. And if the data redundancy is there, then there may be problem for the storage of the data, or it require the higher storage, and it also require the higher cost to retrieve the data. And if there is a data redundancy in the system, then it leads to the inconsistency. Okay, means if there is a duplication of the data, then there is inconsistent data. Now the inconsistent data means what? Okay, so as we know, the duplication of data means what? The same data is present on multiple files. Okay, and inconsistent data means what? The data which is present in all these files is different, or it did not match. That is nothing but the inconsistent data. So if the data redundancy is there, then there may be the data inconsistency. So again, for the inconsistency, we can take the same example, that is the customer is having the saving account also and the loan account also. Okay, and the address and the telephone number of that customer is present in two files, that is in the loan account also and in the saving account also. Suppose the address of that customer get changed, and this change is updated only in the saving account, or this change is reflected only in the saving account, and in the loan account the address of that customer is the old address. Okay, so these two addresses, they are not matching with each other. Means what? There is a inconsistency in the file. Means the customer is single, okay, or only one person is there, but there are two different addresses of the single customer. Means what? There may be problem. So this problem is nothing but the inconsistency of the data. Okay, if there is an inconsistency, means what? The data which is present in multiple files, it is not matching with each other, or the data is not same. Okay, there may be different data. That is nothing but the data inconsistency. Okay, so the data redundancy and the inconsistency is nothing but the data is present in multiple files. Okay, it means there is a duplication of data, so we call it as a data redundancy. And if the duplication of data is present, then it leads to inconsistent data. Means there is a condition that if the duplication of data is there, then all the data must be same. And if the data is not same, or the data is not matched with each other, then we can say that there is a inconsistent data. So this is the very basic problem or the drawback of the file system. Okay, now the second drawback, second one is the difficulty in accessing the data. Okay, means if I want to retrieve something from that file system or from that program, then it is difficult to retrieve that data. That is nothing but the difficulty in accessing the data. Okay, consider the example, again same bank. Okay, if that bank officer, he want the list of customer who live in a particular area. Consider he want the list of customer who live in KBP Chowk. Okay, so he wants the list of customer who live in KBP Chowk. Then he has to ask this list for the data processing department. Means he have to ask this list to somebody else. But what happened? There is an application program which generates the list of all the customer. Okay, actually what happened, in that bank only one application program is present, and that is nothing but, or that application program is for retrieve the list of all the customers. Okay, but there is no any application program to retrieve the list of customer who are present in a particular area. So here the bank officer or the bank manager, he has two choices. The first choice is retrieve the list of all the customer and then sort manually, okay, or externally sort the data. And the second option is that ask that data processing department to write the new application program to retrieve the data or to retrieve the list of customers who live in the KBP zone. Okay, so these two options are not feasible and these two options are not satisfactory. Okay, because after some days, suppose that bank manager wants to retrieve the record of the customer or the list of customers whose balance is less than 10,000. Okay, means he want to retrieve only the names of those customers whose balance is less than 10,000. And again, if this application program is not exist in that department, so again he has to use the two options. First option is either retrieve the list of customers and sort the data manually, or ask that processing department to write the new application program for this feature. Means what? If we want to retrieve, or if I want to retrieve something new, then with the help of this file system, we cannot retrieve that data. So there is the difficulty in accessing the data. Okay, so this conventional file processing environment, it is not allowing us the needed data to retrieve. Okay, in a convenient and the efficient manner. Okay, means that file system application, it gives us data, but that retrieving process is not efficient. Means that process is not easy, or this process is not convenient also. Means the options, the two options to retrieve that data, they are not convenient also. Okay, so the second point is difficulty in accessing data. Means if we want to retrieve the new features of the data, then every time we need to write the new application program to carry out that new task. Okay, we cannot retrieve the new data with the help of the older application programs. Okay, if we can retrieve the data with the older application program, then the option is not feasible to us. Means either we need to sort that data manually. Okay, so this option is not feasible. So there is a difficulty in accessing the data. Now the third disadvantage is the data isolation. So as we know, the different application programmers, they create different application programs, and these programs are written in multiple files. And if these programs are written with the help of different programming languages, then obviously the format and the structure of the data is also different. So the data isolation, or the isolation, is nothing but the division of data. Means our data is scattered in various files. Means our data is divides, or it is present in number of files, and these files obviously it may be in different formats. So writing new application program to retrieve the data, it is difficult. So again, because of the data isolation and because of the data is present at multiple files, it is difficult to retrieve that data. Means suppose, consider the example, if that data, consider if the loan account file, it is written with the help of C++ language, and the saving account file, it is written with the help of Java language. And suppose I want to retrieve the name of the customer who are having both, that is loan as well as the saving account. Okay, if I want to retrieve the names of the customer who are having the loan or who has taken the loan, and who is also present or who is also having the saving account. So I cannot retrieve such names of the customer because the two accounts, that is the saving account and the loan account, they are written with the help of different programming languages. Means what? The format or the structure to store the data is different. Okay, because these two accounts are written in the written with the help of different programming languages. So because of the data isolation, again there is a difficulty to accessing the data. Now the fourth disadvantage is the integrity problems. So the integrity problems means in our program or the database must satisfy some consistency constraints. Okay, consistency constraints are nothing but the database must satisfy some conditions. Okay, and these conditions are implemented in the program itself. Okay, for example, one example of the integrity constraint is that the balance of the saving account never below zero. Okay, should not be below zero, it should be greater than the zero. So it is my condition that the balance of the account should be greater than zero. So means what? It is my condition, or I can say that it is the integrity constraint. And these types of constraint we can implement in the database whenever we are creating our database or whenever we are creating our tables. So the application programmers means the programmers who write the Java, C++ program. So the application programmers, they implement or they add these constraints in the appropriate code only. Okay, and if I want to change that existing constraint, or if I want to add the new constraint to that file, then it is not possible, or it is hard to possible. Okay, but to implement the integrity constraints in the database, it is very easily by using a single query. We can add new constraint to the database, and we can also change the existing constraint of the database. So the integrity problem is nothing but the we need to implement some kind of conditions in our system or in our database. Okay, now the next one or the fifth drawback is the atomicity of the updates or the atomicity problem. So the atomicity problem is nothing but as we know that our computer system may fail anytime, and it is difficult, it is very difficult if the failure occurs, means if our computer system fails and the data is restored to the consistent state that is exist prior to the failure. Okay, means what? I'm doing some operation or I'm executing some program in my computer system, and if suddenly the computer system fails, okay, and when that system recovers from the failure, then my data should be present as it is. Okay, suppose currently or before the failure, consider I'm executing some equation. Okay, and the value of x is the 10. After execution of that equation, consider the value of x is 10, and if suddenly suddenly my system fails, and when my system is recovered from the failure, then the value of that x should be 10 only. Okay, that is nothing but if our system fails, then the data present in our present in the system should be same as before that failure occurs. Okay, then for the atomicity problem, there is one example, or we'll take one example, that is, consider there are two person, and one person is transferring some amount to the another person. Okay, so there is a program for transfer of rupees, say 50 rupees, from account A to the account B. So if the system failure occurs during the execution of the program, so it is possible that the 50 rupees are removed from the account A, and but it is not credited to the account B. Okay, so what is our example? So from the two accounts, so from account A, I am transferring 50 rupees to the account B. And if I have removed or I have executed the program, and during the execution of that program, suppose failure occurs, so it may possible that the 50 rupees are removed from the account A, but it is not credited to the account B. Okay, so such problems may occur in the systems or in the database, and if such failures occur, then it will leave our database into the inconsistent state. So the solution is the atomicity. Means what? Either all the credit or the debit should occur, or none of the occur. Means either 0% or the 100%. Okay, atomicity is nothing but either all, either 0 or the nothing, or the 100. Okay, so to ensure the atomicity in the file system, so it is not possible. So we can ensure the atomicity in our database, or we can implement the atomicity concept in our database, but to implement this system into the file system, it is not possible, or it is difficult. Okay, now our next drawback is the concurrent access by the multiple users, or it is also called as the concurrent access anomalies. So the concurrent access is nothing but simultaneously multiple users are accessing the same data. That is nothing but the concurrent access. Okay, so this concurrent access, it is required to measure the performance of our system. Okay, means if a single system or the application in that system, if it is accessed by multiple users, then we can measure, or we can check the performance of that system. And there may be problem with the concurrent access. That is, if the multiple users, they are just reading the data, then it may not be problem. Okay, if the multiple users are reading the data, then it may not be problem. But if they are updating the data, or if they are modifying the data, then it may problem, there may be problem with the concurrent access. Means what? Consider in a file the value of x is 10. Okay, and the multiple users are accessing the same file, and one user, he has updated the file to 10 to 20. Okay, and the another user, so if he want to update the data, or he want to update that file, then he may see the old value of that x. Okay, means the another user, he may see the 10 value of the x because of this concurrent access anomalies. Okay, so for the concurrent access anomalies, we can again take one example, that is, consider the two people. Okay, they are reading the account balance as a 500, and they are updating it by withdrawing the money. So the first user is withdrawing 50 rupees, and the another user is withdrawing 100 rupees from that back account. Okay, so when first user executing the program, means he's that 50 rupees is debited from the 500, means the current value is the 450. Okay, so the first user, he first see the value, that is the 500, then he will reduce 50 from that 500 and write 450 as the output. And when another user is deducting the 100 rupees from that 500, okay, actually he has to reduce that 100 rupees from the 450, but the second user, he may see the old value of the account, that is again 500, so he will reduce the 100 rupees from that 500 and he will write the result back to the database, that is the 400. Means currently there are two values or the two balances of that account. First one is the 450 and another one is the 400. Okay, so these two values are wrong values. Okay, and because of these two values, there may be the inconsistency in that account. Okay, but the actual value is the 350. But this 350 value, it is not replicated anywhere. So if the concurrent users are accessing the data, especially if the concurrent users or the multiple users are updating the data, then there may be problems with this. And the last drawback of the file system is the security problems. Okay, so the security problems means suppose my account or my data is there, then I can only see or I can only update that data and no one else can update my data. That is nothing but the security. Okay, so not every user of the database should be able to access all the data. Means it is not necessary or it is not required that all the users of the database they access all the data. Okay, means if the third party or if the user is there, then he access or he is able to see only his account. Okay, and if the administrator of the database is there, then he can able to access the all the accounts. Okay, so like this, we need to provide some restriction or we need to give some restriction to the data or to the users. Okay, for example, suppose in the bank, the payroll person, okay, payroll person means the person who performs the or who gives the salaries to the employees. So that payroll person, he needs to access only the information about the employees because he has to pay to the employees only. So he can access only the employee information and he cannot access the information about the customer of the bank. Means only the employee's information is restricted at person. So with the help of security or by adding different security measures, we can perform it in our database. So to add some such security constraint, it is difficult in the file system, but we can add these security mechanisms in our database. Okay, so there these are the total 7 drawbacks of the file system. Okay, so very first drawback of the file system is the data redundancy and the inconsistency. Okay, so the redundancy means the duplication of data. Okay, and the inconsistency means the data is not matched with each other. Okay, then the second drawback is the difficulty in accessing data, as we require the new application program if there is the new task or new feature to perform. So because of this, there is a difficulty in accessing data. So the third drawback is the data isolation. Okay, isolation means what? Our data is scattered in multiple files and the data is present in multiple files and the multiple formats are there to store the data. So again, there is a problem to retrieve the data because of the data isolation. Then the fourth one drawback is the integrity problem. Integrity problem means it should satisfy some conditions or we must implement some conditions in our program. So the integrity to implement the integrity constraints, it is difficult in the file system. Now next one is the atomicity problem or the atomicity of the updates. So the atomicity means either all or nothing, means either the credit and debit should occur or nothing is occurred. Okay, then the concurrent access anomalies or the concurrent access by the multiple users. If the multiple users are accessing the same data, then there may be the problem. Okay, or if they are problem, but if they are updating or if they are writing the data, then there may be the problem with the data. And the last one is the security problems. Okay, so the it is hard to provide the security to our file system. Okay, but we can easily provide the security mechanisms to the database. Okay, so the database system, they offer solution to all the above problems. Okay, means the database system, it overcomes all the drawbacks of the file system, and based on that, these are the some advantages of the database. So the first advantage is the centralized management. Okay, so as the database administrator, okay, database administrator means he is a person, he is having the central control over the data. So our data is centrally managed at a single place. Okay, means in our file system, the data may be scattered in multiple files. Okay, so we can remove that drawback here. Our data is centrally placed anywhere in a single location, and the database administrator, he manages the data and he controls the data. Then second advantage is the reduction of redundancies. Okay, so as the centralized control of the data is there by the database administrator, so he avoids or it avoids the unnecessary duplication of the data. Means as only at a single place our data is present, means there is a centralized system, then the redundancy of data is not present there, means only one copy of data is present over there. Then the next advantage is the shared data or the data sharing. So the DBMS, it allows to share the data with the multiple users or with the multiple application programmers also. Next one is the integrity. So the integrity, or we can check some conditions, we can check some validations through the integrity, or we can implement the integrity integrity constraints in our database. Next one is the security. Next advantage is the security. So the database administrator, he can give the access to different users. Means there are different users of the database. The first one is the client or the end user, we can say, or we can say the non-computerized user. Then the programmers, they are also accessing the data. Then we can say the administrator, they can also access the data. So we can provide some security mechanism, or we can implement the security mechanism in our database. And the last advantage is the data independence. So the independence is nothing but the data is not depend on another data. Okay, that is nothing but data independence. Suppose the database administrator, he has modified some structure of the data, then it will not affect on the different application programs. Okay, but if the data is same or if the data is depend on one another, then if we modify one data, then it will definitely affect on the another data. But if the data independence is there, means if we modify some data or if we modify the structure of the data, then this modification do not affect the other applications. So these are the some advantages of the database. Okay, so I think today we will stop here.